Hello, everyone, and welcome. Beautiful summer afternoon. Deserves a scene like this on a beautiful, it could be lake, a river, any kind of body of water. But I want to pretend that we're heading to Hawaii with this picture and these beautiful plumeria flowers. So to get started, I do have several sizes of brushes. I have here a 1/4 inch flat brush, a thin liner brush, and a 1/2 inch round brush. And then the colors that you'll need are going to be some acrylic white paint. I have this one is called Rose, but any red will do. You just need also some blue, some yellow, some Viridian green, and a teeny tiny touch of black. And then we also have a cup of water handy. So of course, when you're dealing with water, you want to have a couple extra paper towels nearby. And we'll do our sketch with a pencil. So you want to grab a pencil. And the type of paper that I'm using today is a mixed media paper. So we have a nice, almost stock mixed media paper to do our painting. So to get started, I'm going to grab my inspiration and we're going to find the horizon line. So it's about a hand from the top down, a little bit above what halfway would look for you guys. So we're going to find halfway and go a little bit higher because the flower is going to take up most of our design space. So we're just going to make a little window frame of flowers and have the water based in the center and a nice little sunset rosy pink sky with a touch of yellow happening here. So once we kind of go above halfway, do a straight line across, we will then find where the center is and make ourselves a little circle. So just to be comfortable, I'm just going to angle my paper and I'm not going to try to do a circle all in one shot. I'm going to slowly come around and just have that circle kind of float right above the horizon line. And use my friendly eraser to make it as perfect as you can. And if you're lucky to have something round nearby, you can always trace a little circle like a bottom of a cup or a mug, or even use a compass. Any help always works. Okay, so I did do it a little off center, but no worries, that's okay. So with our inspiration, we also have this line of some mountains towards the back. So we'll just start with a little bumpy line that starts to get a little larger as we go outward. So just a little bumpy curve, nothing perfect. That will work. So just to zoom in a little, you have ourselves our sun floating above the horizon with a little rock formation. And then now to design our flowers, we're going to start off with creating almost like asterisk. So we're going to make an X and then a line in between. And this is going to help us with creating the flowers and kind of giving us a starting point. So I have one big flower here. And with this asterisk, I'm just going to start using it kind of as a guide to round the first flower. So we have one, because we want to come out with a roundness, but come in narrow enough, like so. So I'm trying to end up right back at the center. Now coming outward here, just rounding the big line, and then coming towards the center again. I'm keeping that petal within that little asterisk. So I come out, round it, and kind of come back in, go out, round it, and then come back in at a narrow point. And then I'm going to do that again now with these two sections. I skip one over, so I always have a gap because this is a 5-petal flower. So there will be a gap here. And then we'll come around almost off the page like so. And another off the page. So that is my first bloom, using an asterisk to kind of keep the shape. And we, remember, skipped this section when we drew. So now I'm just going to erase my guidelines just to give me a little cleaner finish. So when I put the color on, like so. So we have that first bloom, and then we'll just sketch a little leaf here on top, almost like a parenthesis, and then another parenthesis with a line in the center. And then we can kind of tuck another one over here. There's a little gap. So let's go ahead and come outward, creating another leaf. So we have another leaf there. And then this one's really pointing out almost on the horizon, like so. And then that little gap at the bottom is going to get a little treatment for a leaf as well. Perfect. So we have our first flower down and only 4 more to go. So again, we're going to find the center of where this next big bloom is. So it's going to be kind of in that lower left quadrant of your page. So this is half. We're going to kind of go in the middle. And again, I'm going to draw an asterisk or an X with a line in the center, like so, just to help us with our petals. So our petals are a little bit bigger than the next one. So don't be shy to fill in the page when we're creating this next flower. So I'm just going to come all the way out, round it, and then make my way back to fit in between that little asterisk. So come out, make it round, and then fit in between. Next, we'll do the same thing. Start at the center, kind of work our way outward, round it, and then tuck it back into the center there. All right, and then we'll come here, come around, and this one's pretty easy. It's literally right off the page. We have that petal and another. Again, we're going to have a teeny tiny gap here. So we're going to skip over that section and then come outward with a roundness there, literally off the page. And again, like so. And it doesn't have to be exactly perfect like our inspiration, but you do want to maintain the shape of the flower. So this is our inspiration. This is where we have ours for this picture. And now this little area has a little gap for a leaf. Another little leaf is happening here. And then we're off to do another bloom. And then once we get these blooms kind of created, The color placement is fairly easy as well. So again, the asterisk, a big X with a line through it. And then this one in particular only has 4, so we'll go ahead with the inspiration to do just 4. And it's a little smaller. So we're not going to take up too much space with this one. Almost giving like a 4-leaf clover. And this time the gap is going to be towards the top. So we're going to come around using the starting and ending points. So where I start, I come back. And we should have something like that for that bloom. And then we're going to fill in with some leaves. So we have a leaf here. We have a leaf here. A line through it to remind us it's a leaf. A leaf down at the bottom. And then we can finally fill in that leaf connecting these two, like so. And then we have a little corner flower and a bigger bloom towards the horizon. So we're getting there. As we're working, I hope it becomes a little easy for you to create the blooms. This one's a medium-sized flower as well. So this one's gonna kind of round up at the top. So I'm gonna start at the center, round out the end, and then make it come back to fit in between that first almost V section. I'm gonna come out again. There's gonna be a teeny tiny gap here. So we'll make the bottom nice and round. This one's going to be off to the side. And here, like so. This one will get a leaf, another leaf, and then we can kind of erase this little section for our last flower. So again, big X, the center is mostly close to the edge. And we'll get started with our first round petal. This next one comes off the page. Another one off the page. Then we have one kind of dipping a little low with the roundness. And you can adjust the petals and the gaps to your preference to try your best to recreate it. And then we have a little leaf tucked here. I'm drawing a line through it so I know it's a leaf. 2 more parenthesis lines with a line in the middle. And finally, our last one. So this one's a lot more sketchy than we usually do. So I'm just going to zoom in just to show again the lines. I started off with an asterisk, so it's an X with a line in the center, and then kind of go out with a large roundness, and then make your way back so that you fit in between that V. And again, back out and around so you fit in between that V. And don't worry that it's not so perfect, but as long as you have 4 to 5 of the petals on, you are in good shape. So to get started with the background, we're going to try our best to fill in the top area first with our 1/2-inch flat brush. And we're going to make ourselves a nice sunset vibe, starting off with a little pink, which is just going to be some red and white mixed and a touch of yellow. So we have a little red swiping, a little pink, and then we'll go ahead and introduce a teeny tiny bit of yellow to get that coral shade happening. And throughout this background, I'm going to start with this base pink, but then just come in with just white and just yellow to create some little streaks. So starting off with the base of that pink, white, and yellow, and we'll just go ahead and swipe left to right across the whole sky. I'm just going to pull a little more red, just I want a little deeper, a little bit of a deeper shade. So you can mix and play. I'm just going to come in with a little more yellow. We want now a little more orangey and a little more white. And you can mix and play and add as you swipe across. As long as that base is that pinky kind of coral color, you're in good shape. So as I'm putting it on, I'm going to wet my brush a little bit just to allow for better movement. I'm just going to come into this background and every so often introduce just orange, excuse me, just a little bit of yellow and just a little bit of white. So we just start with that base kind of pinky coral that we mixed. And let's mix some more because we're running out. So again, that's the pink with a little yellow. That's our base color. Pink with a little yellow. Gonna swipe it across left to right. And if you like your sunset just yellow, if you like your sunset just a little more simple, you can pick any color for your sunset. This is just what's the inspiration for today. And I'm just trying to stay not too much over our sketch lines. But I do want to swipe left to right just to keep the sky looking uniform. And now I'll just come in with a little touch of white to swipe across and blend out in some areas. My way around the sun and then pull it left to right. I'm just holding the brush horizontally and swiping left to right. Getting close to the edges of the leaves. A little water can help. Smooth and blend. For the base color, which is the pink, white, and yellow. And every so often, with between those base colors, again, you can swipe with just yellow or swipe with just pink. Just so you have that nice little coral moment for your background. Now, again, don't worry if you go over the sketch line edges, that's okay. With our 1/4 inch flat brush, I'm going to go ahead and rinse it. That just means a good swirl and pressure and tap at the bottom of my cup and then give it a good dry. So the next area that we're going to go kind of work in is again starting with a base color and then coming in with a little white and yellow. So this base color is going to be for our water our ultramarine blue. And again, just for comfort purposes, I have a little gap here and on the edges. I'm gonna have all this be flowers. So I'm gonna really just focus on this little patch here of some blue. So I have this ultramarine blue. It's a very kind of bright blue. So I'm gonna soften it with a little white, giving me a little of an oceany color. A touch, a teeny tiny touch of the green. And that's going to be my base color. I'm just going to lighten that up just a hair. And just play with mixing until you get a nice oceany blue shade. So that's the color that I have. You can pick any color blue that you like for your water. And again, I'm just going to hold my brush horizontally and swipe right at the base, left to right. And I'm almost filling in line by line. I'm probably not going to just do one big stroke. I want to add a little texture and fill in between. So I'll go ahead and fill in line by line across, holding the brush horizontal and swiping left to right with a little pressure, not too much. The less pressure, the thinner the line. And just work my way down into the nestle of these little leaves and flower blooms. And again, just kind of working it left to right, back and forth, leaving it very textury till I cover up the whole area. Now I'm going to come in after that while it's still wet with a thin liner brush. So I have this base color down. Now I'm going to alternate adding while it's still wet a little white and a little green and yellow. So a teeny tiny bit of yellow. Mixed with that base color blue. So I have that green and yellow mixed. So once I have that green and yellow mixed, I'm just going to touch the tip with a teeny tiny bit of yellow, almost not even there. And then so it has that greenish blue and then a concentration of some yellow. And I'm just going to go in and start doing some reflection lines in that greenish yellow color. And I'm just starting big and getting tinier as we get closer to the bottom. And you almost can't see it. We're just creating some texture and interest. And then I'm just going to come in with that darker marine blue and thin lines. Didn't even clean my brush, just coming in between. Again, just creating some interest with some lines while that blue is still wet. Small strokes, a little water to help it move, and very thin, almost drawing like a pencil line, thin. Okay, and then we'll come back with highlights after this dries. So we just have those base kind of shadowy bits of the yellow and blue mixed, and then we'll come back with the white as we move forward. So now I'm going to take that same bigger brush, that 1/2 inch flat brush, and fill in all of our flowers with a good bit of white. Actually, you know what? Let's do the leaves first. Leaves first. So the leaves are going to be a nice green base mixed with a teeny tiny bit of blue. So the green and a little yellow will come together. We'll try to make two shades, a dark one and a lighter one. So more yellow for the lighter and more dark. More of the dark green with a touch of the yellow here. So there should be two shades. Same green and yellow, but one has more yellow and one has more green. All right, and we're basically just going to retrace our petals here. So think following the shape of a parenthesis and filling in the center. Follow that curve and then fill down the center. Following that curve and then flat across the center. And following that curve and flat across the center. And that is this little bit of darker green shade. So we're going to come back, make some more for us. A little yellow, a little green. And since we have a little gap here, we'll just come and freehand two curves and a flat bit. I'm just kind of filling in those gaps around the flower just with some color because we know there's some greenery back there, but they don't necessarily have too much of a shape. Again, just retracing the edge and filling down the center. Retracing that edge and filling down the center, and then just kind of tucking in some green in between these gaps. And just swiping across just to load our brush. Touch of yellow. And then loading the paint. Again, following the curve and filling down the center. Making that curve, filling down. Again, and some of these little gaps can get a little green also. Again, following the curve. And then big flat filling down the center. Following the curve with a retrace and then flat down the center. So just make sure that your leaf edges are pretty sharp and retraced, and then start filling in down the middle. And because we're working with white flowers, I'm going to really give it a moment for this to dry before we start adding the flower detail. So retrace, fill in down the center, and you can come in with this little bit of darker green and just give it some background filler as well. It's coming in to retrace the edges a bit. Perfect. So you should have all your greens kind of filled in. We really want to have it nice and thinly placed. We will be adding more color to it. You do want it to dry fully before we get started with the flower blooms. So now let's get a little busy on this side. So I've been mixing heavy with some yellow. So I want to get some clean yellow just to make sure that my sun is not going to turn green. So we'll go ahead into our sun now with the smaller flat brush. And again, just to retrace. Of your sketch can work. And I'm even going to pull into a little bit of white just to really give my edge a pop of a clean line. Cover over my pencil line. And then I can just let it dry and layer over another bit of yellow. I just want to lighten that. Perfect. And now just fill in with more yellow. Oopsie. All right. So now the first layer of yellow is laid down. We'll come back now. I'm going to clean my brush and dry it on a paper towel roll. And we'll do the little mountainous greenery and background. Again, we're going to start with the same colors that we used for our leaves, which is that green with a touch of the yellow. So a little green, touch of the yellow. And again, we have two shades, one dark and one light. And just that little horizon line of lush green land. I'm just swiping across and giving it a mountainous little look here. Perfect, and that's going to be the base color. And now we'll just switch that over to our thin liner brush. I'm just going to add some interesting shade back there with some lighter colors. So we're going to go ahead and mix a little bit of a lighter green here. And we're going to focus on just the left side of these little formations and the right side of these little formations. So we're going to start shading it just so it really looks like mountains. We're going to just start putting little dots going up at an angle just to give it a little mountain look. So just a little detail gives the picture more depth and personality just with a little light color. Again, little light strokes going up at an angle. And again, the light strokes are going to be facing the sun. So I'm going to do it on the right side now. Come in with that little bit of green and tap, tap away down the slope. It's going to see all the natural little slope happening here. And then we can even add a little more magic of that sunset with just a little yellow glow across the whole mountainside too. So I'm going to take some yellow, clean my brush well, just a plain old yellow. Lighten it with a teeny tiny bit of white because why not? Add a little water to it. Uh-oh. Yellow and white, not yellow, white, and green. Yellow, white. Here we go. All right, and then we're just gonna kind of create a halo right above this little mountainside of just that light glow. A quick little glow. And we'll go ahead and add that second coat to our sun. So now we have that yellow. We can come back to our sun. Retrace, clean up, and wow. Keep it curvy. I'm filling in, and there we have it. So now we're going to make it very glittery on our water's edge. Oop. I noticed a little missing leaf. Let's take a quick detour before my color dries. Okay, back to the water. Thin liner brush, pretty clean. And we're going to come in with some more highlights. So that's just going to be a little bit of watered down white. Thin liner brush. I'm going to twist it on its side just to give me a little bit of a point. And I'm going to do a series of tiny lines and dots. So if you want to do the dots with the brush, you can, or you can also use the back of your brush like this. And trick is to come back after one or two dots. We're just going to really try to mark up and stay in a line. So if you're going to do the dots, try to keep it in line with each other. Teeny tiny works. And then once you have some dots, you can also just come in with just little teeny tiny, barely touching, like you're almost making a mistake. Like, whoops, I didn't mean to do too much there. The highlight, like so. Okay. So now that the base of the green is on, we can go ahead and start our white flower bloom. So that's going to be the larger brush. So we want it really clean. I'm just going to take a moment to really clean the brush, dry it well. Because we are going to add some accents in the center, but we want the white to pop really well. So we'll start with the white base and then we'll add color on top. So don't be scared if your water is a little dirty right now. As long as it's drying pretty clean and no color is coming off, you should be good. Or you can take a moment just to change out your water, but we'll come with a good amount of pigment. For the most part, all of my leaf edges are dry, so I'm going to take my time and just retrace the edge like we did with the leaves and fill the center. So retrace the edge and fill down the center. Retrace the edge and fill down the center. Retrace the edge. And again, you want it white because when we add the colors on top, you want them to slightly blend. So again, retrace your edge and fill down the center. And if you're working with other mediums and you don't have, you're just having the crayons, you can just skip this part. And when we add the color, just follow the shade of the color. Use your page background as your white. Again, just coming in with retracing the sketched line and then down the center. Retracing that sketched line and filling down the center. I'm going to pull a little more white because we have a lot of blooms. And again, lots of paint, little retrace around the edge and pull down the center. Retrace and down the center. Retrace. Filling in those big white petals. And it's very important that you have your leaves dry. And the way you know that they're dry is that they're no longer shiny. And we kind of want to move a little quickly with this because we want to add the color at the same time while it's still a little wet. Again, retrace the outside. Okay, all our blooms are ready to rock. And now we'll get our 1/4" flat brush ready to start detailing with a little color. So we just need a little more yellow. So we're going to start off with yellow on the petal. And then we'll come in with the thin liner brush and give it some blue and then finally some red accents. So just to prepare ourselves with a clean brush so the yellow can pop some more. And we're going to concentrate it at the base of each petal, that yellow color. So working on cleaning. Ready for the yellow. So the smaller 1/4" brush is going to do the heavy lifting for this part. And you're going to start from the center and just pull outwards towards the edge. So start from your center and pull outwards. Just a big chunk of yellow going towards the edge, but not all the way. Again, just want to kind of work a little quickly in this part, starting from the center and working your way outward. Just to keep working while the paint is still wet. From the center and pulling outwards a good chunk of the way. definitely more than half. Just keep working. So this is the part, if you had crayon or colored pencil, you'd color using your pencil strokes to kind of do multiple lines going across and filling in that way, leaving some edges still white. And again, just pulling outward from the center and trying your best to fill in that bloom. And just a little touch of yellow really gives that flower some life. And again, from the center going outward, just like so. Lots of curved lines pulling outward. Coming back in, seeing if anything needs a little help. And that would be it for that smaller flat brush. And now we'll come in to add these detail lines. So that detail line is really going to be concentrated at the center, and then we'll pull it around for a little retrace. And there's actually a little bit of orange in there too. So we have some blue, we have some of that pinky color, and we have some orange little accents around the edges of our flowers. So liner brush is back on deck, and we'll start with that blue center. So I'm just going to mix a teeny tiny bit of green with that blue. Teeny, teeny, tiny. And then lighten it up a little. I need a good amount because we have a lot to create for our center of our flower. There we go. And I'm going to twist my brush on the side. We have our blue color. And we'll start at the center. And again, we're pulling out a little bit of this blue using the tip of the brush and just kind of creating these lines that come out from the center. And then you're just going to get a real easy, not complicated, almost brush. I'm not making a lot of contact. I'm like wisping a retrace around the drawn line. So it's almost like I'm barely touching and kind of creating a little retrace all around. And if you can see the retrace with those blue accents, it does not have a big harsh line. It's just very soft and very quick. And there's a little bit of a white gap still left behind. So we have a little bit of the white gap that we still leave behind. So we're just going to come retrace. I'm going to add a little water here just to make it a little more pliable. So a little water. And again, quick little center lines in the blue. You want to see those thin strokes coming from the center. just like so. And then the retrace almost leaving that little bit of white edge happens. Very easy, light, not harsh at all. Very soft. Again, some lines for the center. And then just a quick little breezy retrace. Lines for the center. Coming outward. And then a quick little, almost like you're running a race. The faster you move, the lighter you touch, the better it works. And then try to leave a little gap of white still lingering on the edge. And some strokes of blue from the center. So it comes together fairly quickly. A little pink action now, some red and white, and a touch of that yellow from earlier. So we're back to that little bit of a coral color. I'm going to add some accents in this shade, just more so on one side. So we have a little accent here, a little accent there, just a little teeny tiny accent here and there. Just developing that little bit of interest. A quick sweep, barely any pressure. A quick sweep. I'm just making an orange. Making a little orangey here. To come into little areas, just accenting the curves, like so. Okay, so now we're going to lighten one half of our leaves. So I'm just going to come in with this lighter green color. Same thin line and brush once our flowers are finished. And now we're just going to finish up our little accent leaves. So these leaves are just going to get one half of them with some lighter shades. Layering right on top, just accent bits. And then I'm just going to come in with that color green And a little water. Didn't even clean my brush. Just got in a little green. And just giving it a little retrace. Just that darker green. So one half of those leaves gets that little bit of yellow treatment. And now we're darkening the edge with just some green. And a line down the center. Come around. Water. And that same green is just going to get tucked in with some squiggles in these little areas that are still kind of empty. You just want to give it a quick rough filler in just to give that background some interest. A teeny tiny bit of white here and there on these. Teeny tiny bit. A little white. Not too much. And once you've retraced, outlined your leaves, add a little highlight to your liking here and there. You can sign it on the bottom left or right of your page. That's why I have this little bit of black just to sign. And this is our inspiration. And this is what we came up with today. And there you have it. A wonderful little beach scene. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for sticking around and hanging with me. And you can find me on Instagram at Enjoy Erica Art Studio. I'd love to see what you guys came up with.